In this lesson, we'll be learning how to control the movement of an actor on screen by using our keyboard keys. In this case, it'll be the up, down, left, and right arrows, as well as using a touch screen such as an iPad or tablet. So I'm going to show you a finished product here, and then we'll go through on how we built this, and then I'll build one from scratch. So I'm just going to hit my play button here for now. And I've got a little actor on stage, and it is animated, so we will be animating it with the supplied images. So if I hit my left arrow, he walks to the left. If I hit the right arrow, the animation works accordingly, and he walks to the right. And you'll notice when I release, he does stop. Up arrow, same idea. Down arrow, same idea. And one little added twist is if he leaves the screen, we do have the screen wrap on, and he will always sort of recycle through the other end. So if he goes up through the top, he will return through the bottom, as you can see there. Okay, so I've been using my 4 keys on my keypad, on my keyboard rather, and they are attached to the 4 different arrow keys. Now, I have a visual keypad on stage here, and this is what is meant to be used by somebody using touch screen. And the way we test that in this case is if you just go anywhere on the screen, you can click down, hold your mouse down the whole time, and this is a left click, and just move over the little arrows, and he will respond. And this is how we test whether touchscreen is working when we're on a computer. Okay, now the way this is sort of engaging is that I have one graphic of this little touchpad, if you will, and then I have 4 little invisible boxes meant as buttons to trigger the movement. So I can click it as well, of course. When I drag away, it does disengage. Okay, and I can click outside as well and enter with my mouse still being clicked, held down, and it will respond to that. And that again is how we can test the iPad or the tablets and the phone touchscreen interface. So again, if I bring them up here and bring them over here, there we go. So let's go back to the editor. I'll do a quick look through on how this was built, and then we'll create a new one here. And that was my dog coming in to join me, if you heard that. So I'm just going to go to the backstage here. Now, on this particular file, for some reason, I actually attached all the behaviors to the instance. And maybe it was just to demonstrate the fact that you can make an instance. Other than that, there's no real strong reason for that. So if you want to build it all in the prototype, by all means. But since that's the way this one was built, let me just click on the instance tab here, having clicked on the actor on the stage once. And I'll just pull this all the way up. There are basically 4 main rules attached to the different directions. Okay, so let me just open one of these here. Maybe I'll open up the move to the right rule. And I'll open up the do, and we do have something in the else box as well. If I open that up there. Okay, so if I can maybe move this up a bit farther. All right, so let's look at our conditions window up here. I have 2 conditions. One is to check if a specific key is pressed on the keyboard. In this case, it's the right key being pressed down. The second condition, and I'll explain this further as we're building, but it's basically relying on what's inside of a custom attribute that I built inside of my game. So I'll show you that quickly here under the game attributes. I have a attribute that I made called move. It's an integer attribute, and it defaults to 0. The logic behind that is that when my mouse mouses over one of the 4 buttons, it will set this attribute to either 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that's why we're checking the condition here. So if the custom attribute called move equals 2, in this case, I've attached the 2 to the right movement, or I'm assigning movement to the right based on the fact that this has been set to 2, do the following, which is setting motion and doing the animation. So let me explain these 2 boxes here in the do. Change attribute. So I'm saying set the motion linear velocity x, that's the horizontal axis, to 50. 50 is the speed, if you will, relatively slow speed. So set the x-axis to 50. A positive number moves to the right on the x-axis. A negative number moves to the left. So I have a positive 50 and it should move to the right. And to make this more realistic, I have contributed or supplied some frames so that you can animate them inside here by adding an animate behavior. And we'll just leave the rest at their default, but you will be going in and downloading these files that I've provided, and they are marked, named walk left, walk right, walk up, walk down, and so on. So these ones would have been the walk right set. And if I shift click my way through, there's 9 of them there that you can see. Each set has 9. And I just dragged it over the animate window. And because they're numbered sequentially, they should appear in the proper sequence. Okay, I'm just going to click away here and go back to my actors. All right, so that's the animate. So we have motion and animation. Now, because we are doing a linear velocity thing, let me actually turn this off for 1 second here. Under the else, I'm saying if the key is not pressed, or if the condition is not 2 in the custom attribute, set the velocity back to 0. I've turned this off so I can demonstrate when it's off. The thing will just keep going because it has momentum and there's no friction to slow it down or anything. So if I just actually hit play here with that temporarily turned off, it will demonstrate why I have that. You see, I've just hit it. I've released my key and he's just kind of floating in space because there's nothing to resist it. But when you are affecting velocity, it has momentum. Okay, so that is why in the else box, I actually have a separate change attribute behavior to turn the velocity back to 0. So let me play that one more time quickly with that turned back on. Okay, so I hit my right arrow key, and when I let go, he does stop. Okay, so that's the premise behind all 4 directions. So let me close that off, and I'll show you the control buttons. Now, those actually are also on the screen. Those make sense on why I would have separated those into instances. So let me hit 1 here, control button instance, because each of these will be sending a different number to that custom attribute. So if I drag this up a bit here, so I'm saying when the following exists and its touch is inside, we have 4. Make sure you choose inside. And then do what? Change the attribute game move to 1. So on this case, in the up arrow, it will change the game move to 1. And then in the walking man's behaviors, there's a rule there that's checking on the numbers. And if it's a 1, it will trigger the movement for the up rule. Okay? Now let me just go down here and double check that there's nothing in the else. And there actually is, and of course it makes the most sense, right? Set it back to 0 if it's not over that. And that's another way to disengage, if you will. So that will also guarantee the stoppage when we are using the touch screen method. So altogether, inside of each control button, we are changing this to a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. And then when the mouse moves away from that button, we are setting it back to 0. Okay, so it's a bit of a reset right away if this condition is not being met. And that's all the programming behind it. Those are all the behaviors. So if you understood that, you're probably good to go to build this right now, but I will build one from scratch starting with a blank file. Just a reminder, this file is iPhone landscape, iPhone 5 landscape. So one quick more run through here. I'm going to just drag my mouse over these invisible buttons. There we go. And again, on my keyboard, up, down, left, right. Okay, so the next step will be for us to build one of these from scratch.